All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for real people, just like you and just like me. So, big happy birthday to Paul McCartney, who turns 80 years old today. Holy crap, Batman, he made it. There's been a lot of hype about this. In fact, the other night in New Jersey, John Bon Jovi showed up and they actually sang happy birthday to Paul McCartney. I think they sang the happy birthday song and not birthday by the Beatles. Why didn't they do that? Would have just been much more appropriate. I mean, the band just could have cranked itself up. I don't know if they did or not. I may have missed that part. But the article I read said they sang happy birthday to. I'm like, missed opportunity there. Hello. I'm not sure how much John actually sang. It might have been a better idea for the crowd to actually, maybe John tries to sing the first line and then happy birthday. Okay, you guys take it, right? So the other special guest the other night was Bruce Springsteen. It was Paul McCartney and Bruce Springsteen, and they're at the MetLife Center in New Jersey. I know when you say MetLife Center, you're thinking insurance, right? So good time maybe to stock up on life insurance. Maybe they have a booth there after last year. I think it was all case mortality went up by 40% in some places, which is completely unheard of, right? And nobody seems to understand why. And here are two guys that are devoted to the QR code, to, telling folks they need to get to Walgreens or CVS. These guys are devoted. They really care. And it's good. They believe in quarantining and, sheltering in place and all that fun stuff. And, you got to hand it to them politically. In fact, if you throw John Bon Jovi in there, it was a trifecta. You've got three guys who think the same way about the world. So Paul McCartney and Bruce Springsteen end up doing the song Glory Days together. And then I think they do I Want to Be Your Man after that, which was kind of an odd choice. But hey, I'm not monitoring the set list, and I'm not sure even Paul McCartney is. But the ironic thing of having Bruce Springsteen up there singing Glory Days, and he sings the whole thing, and Paul's doing like the background parts, was it Stevie Van Zandt parts? Or is it Steven Van Zandt? I'm thinking he's part of Leonard Skinner, and he's not. He's just his own thing. Back, if you remember from the video, I do remember the video. And by the way, I liked the song. I've liked Glory Days. There are a number of Springsteen songs that I like. Everybody thinks I just hate Springsteen and can't deal with it and so forth. But, the early days of Bruce, before I knew what I know now, I was definitely a fan. And I still think that a lot of his material is decent. He's been focus tested, especially his 70s stuff. It's gone. You won't hear anything you think you're going to hear Thunder Road anywhere? Nope. You're not going to hear any of that stuff. So it's too bad, because that was really a part of rock radio in the 70s and 80s. And now on a few classic hit stations, you'll hear stuff off of, the whole Born in the USA thing. And I think that's about it, right? You don't hear much anything else, which is tragic. And I'm saying that as somebody who really doesn't enjoy the political ramblings of Bruce Springsteen. But what's interesting about Glory Days, right? It's about, trying to relive the past, trying to recapture that moment. And it's interesting in light of Bruce Springsteen's recent DUI, which some people I'm sure have forgotten about. There's a line in the song, and he actually gets the audience really into this line. He says, in fact, I think I'm going down to the well tonight, and I'm going to drink till I get my fill. So I think Bruce has been, doing demonstrations of how you can do this, right? So much so that he's got a recent DUI, and it's just kind of ironic. I just thought I would throw it in there as a gratuitous way to inject some current events into what actually happened in New Jersey the other night. As far as the singing, these are two guys that are really trying to recapture those glory days. Let's be honest. I would give the edge to Bruce. He's a little bit younger than Paul. Paul now being 80 and Bruce being, I don't know, like 72 or 74 or 73. I have no idea. I know it's early 70s, I think, for Springsteen, and it's 80 for Paul McCartney. So it's really sad that this is the end of an era, and in some cases, it's the end of an error. Look, Paul McCartney, an absolute legend. People are showing up to see Paul because they know this could be his last big concert tour based on his ability right now, not as a, as a musician per se, but as a vocalist, which is very important since he sings all of his songs. He can't just toss it over to the other Beatles because, it's just him. I know his band is very talented. I've read in several reviews how talented they are. And it's a little tedious, though, because you don't get a lot of details. You don't get, how was the audio quality? How authentic or how accurate were the songs? And the big one, the big elephant in the room is, how did Paul McCartney sound? How were his vocals? And I've gotten some people that told me that they went to the show and they said, I really liked it. And I think Paul was great. And then I've got other ones that don't really even want to talk about it because they know Paul from his heyday. And I would say he was vocally very proficient up until about maybe 2016, 2017. And then the wheels started to come off the bus. He did that Live in New York City album. If you go back and listen to that, unless everything is overdubbed, which people will come to me later and say, that whole thing, they just used a vocal track from, 1994 or something. And I'm going to be like, great. But I think if it's him on that album actually singing, he sounds great. He sounds very good. He's not as, spry as his 1980s or 1990s days, or obviously going back to the 70s and 60s is not, I don't expect him to sound like that. But, you want to try, if you're going to ask people to pay for a concert like this, and they're going to pay a lot, right? They're going to attempt to pay, and you're going to attempt to accurately present these songs. I don't think that's a lot to ask for. To have Bruce there, yeah, okay, added bonus if you're a Bruce fan. And I bet you a lot of people in that audience, they love Bruce, they love John Bon Jovi, and they love Paul McCartney, probably all for the wrong reasons, but maybe, they like those three characters. They're all very different musically speaking. And that's another sort of aspect to this, is kind of an odd couple, Bruce Springsteen, Paul McCartney. It's just kind of an odd couple. But some people would think, hey, no, that makes perfect sense to me. If it was Bruce Springsteen and like John Mellencamp, I would say, okay. Bruce Springsteen and Bob Dylan. Everybody used to compare Springsteen to Dylan all the time. Okay. But Paul McCartney and Bruce Springsteen, I don't know. It's kind of weird, but it's not, because I'm sure Paul, on his what could be his farewell tour, he's probably going to have a lot more special guests who, again, will take the focus off some of the stuff, quite honestly, that a lot of people like myself have noticed. Like, I don't think Paul is singing all that well right now. And I'm being actually very diplomatic about my critique, as I did before when I said the band really comes in with the vocals and helps Paul along. But there are moments in certain songs where Paul is all by himself, and there are notes that are more difficult to manage. And let's just say things don't go that well from time to time. If you're there because it's Paul McCartney and this is a bucket list item, go to the show. I wouldn't even think about paying, like $1,000 to go see this. I just wouldn't, especially if there are restrictions. And I don't know what's going on in New Jersey right now, but New Jersey was one of those real crazy states which makes sense because both Bon Jovi and Bruce Springsteen live there. So in any event, go check the footage out. You can listen to it, you can watch it, and then you can judge for yourself. Is this a good duet with Paul McCartney and Bruce Springsteen, Glory Days? Does this song make sense for Bruce to sing? Because, that whole DUI thing, nobody's going to put those things together. Only me, and a lot of people just don't care. I just think it's a little bit ironic. It's delicious irony, but is it great music? Well, for me, I'd rather go back to that Bruce Springsteen live box set that came out in the mid 80s. And I remember the album was like the box was like 2 inches thick, and all of these great live performances in Bruce's heyday where Bruce was hitting on all cylinders. And if you were a Springsteen fan, that was a must-have. That was like the Holy Grail. That was like having the catechism to the Bruce church. That was something special. But we're far removed from those days. And because FM radio has become so unimaginative and programmers have become so predictable that you're not going to hear anything crazy or interesting on the radio anymore. You're just going to hear how they play it safe every single day. So that's the video. A lot to do about nothing. My video anyway. The show, you can judge for yourself. I do think it's a cool thing that Bruce and Paul were together, and even John Bon Jovi. And it's good that maybe John didn't sing, but I think there's a reason for that.